Welcome to What We See, conversations across indie education with microschools, homeschool families, and hybrid programs about what they're actually doing, how they know it's working, and what the metrics miss. All right, I'm here with Chelsey Harrington from Evergreen Academy in Arkansas. Where in Arkansas?
Central Arkansas, Conway, Arkansas. We're about 30 minutes from the capital, Little Rock.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me, Chelsey. Can we start out by just hearing a little bit about who you are and how you got here with Evergreen Academy?
I am a pediatric occupational therapy assistant by trade. Worked in pediatrics for a long time, and then I had my son, and then the pandemic happened. So there was a lot of stuff that I was like realizing I wanted to do different in terms of my career and raising him. And I realized really quickly that I didn't want to have him in traditional settings. There wasn't really any preschool around that was going to satisfy what I thought that he needed at the time. The preschools around here are all about, and probably everywhere at this point, but school readiness, right? Like 3 or 4 year old, 3 and 4, like, let's get them ready for kindergarten. And I was like, let's go outside and play. So I started a nature school, preschool actually. That was a couple days a week. I got asked to work at an established nature school and take on the preschool program is actually what happened. And it was my first year doing that. And I was just hooked on it. I was like, this is exactly, this is what kids need. This is what kids should be doing. I saw my own son, who's an only child, just his development went nuts. His social development, his physical development, everything just went, we just had so much fun and he did so well there and I was hooked. Fast forward to now, I've helped start every program that he's been in that's been non-traditional, and for the last 3 years it happens to be what's now Evergreen Academy, but we started off as the farm school. And we were really just a group of parents that once our kids moved from like the preschool age, we were like, well, we need a school aged program. And there's not one that fits our needs. And so we got together, hired an educator who was also tired of the system. And 3 years later, I ended up stepping into an ownership role and I am boots on the ground. I work as the nature play facilitator. I'm going into some training this summer to get my forest school teacher certificate. So I wear a lot of hats, but I love it.
Amazing, amazing.
So yeah.
So tell me, Evergreen Academy is how many
Yeah.
students, what ages? What's the kind of just
Yeah.
data points there?
Yeah, so Evergreen Academy is a nature-based micro school and we serve ages 5 to 9. Of course, people still want to like, what grades? And we're like,
Hmm.
kindergarten age to, fourth grade age range.
Yeah.
Is what is the we who we serve. We have a total of 15 families with us. We have 13 students on campus a day, um, except for Monday, Wednesdays. We have a mix of part-time students and full-time students. So those numbers don't like add up perfectly,
Hmm.
but we serve homeschool families and then we have like we say, full-time students that are 4 days a week.
So are you a legal private school in the way Arkansas does it, or just an organization that serves homeschool families?
So the Arkansas Department of Education this year, so going into the 25-26 school year, recognized micro schools as
Okay,
a like
a
they're
thing.
like re- yes, recognized whatever. They are official now because the Department of Education said that they are.
Uh-huh.
So what they have now is they have private schools, they have like homeschools, and then they have micro schools. And
Uh-huh.
we definitely fall into the micro school category. And so we've been able to be recognized by them. And so we are able to receive all of our students receive funding from the state,
Hmm.
which that was just this year. The first 2 years we had private pay from all of our families. And then once this happened, now all students in the state of Arkansas are eligible for the EFA fund. It's called EFA funds, but
Right. Okay. So maybe a whole other conversation required for this, but I'll just ask one more question about that because of curiosity in the so when kids are of re- requirement, of age where they have to be like in school or homeschooled, like compulsory schooling age, your designation as a micro school will satisfy the compulsory schooling requirement for them.
yes.
Okay, very cool. So that's awesome that Arkansas is jumping into dealing with creating a designation for that and kind of dealing with that ambiguity because I know that that's the edge that a lot of micro school programs live on is are we a private school, are we not, what can we qualify for, what can we what's funding can we get, etc.
Yes, that was actually a huge part of us when when we decided to change the name, and like when we went from the farm school to Evergreen, that was one of the things that really helped us was just it's amazing how just getting really clear on that kind of stuff can help you with your vision and help you with like here's what we are,
Yeah.
so it was very helpful that the state came along board with that, and now micro schools are kind of cropping up everywhere,
Sure.
and we've been doing this for a little bit, so I'm like, whew, let's all band together and try to
Yeah.
support each other.
Uh-huh, for sure. Okay, cool. So let's get into what your program looks like, what learning looks like there, what you're seeing and witnessing. Walk me through a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I show up at in Conway, Arkansas at Evergreen Academy. What am I seeing?
Yeah, so our school is so unique in that we are right in the heart of Conway, of the city of Conway. We are right across the street from the public library.
Nice.
We can walk there, and we do that. And our campus sits on a urban farm
Okay.
with and it's an urban flower farm, so it's not animals. For insurance purposes, I'm like, thank you.
Let's keep it simple here.
Uh, and then there's a train that runs through the back part of our campus, which is interesting.
I bet that's
But
a welcome distraction by a lot of the children.
yeah, it can be. Um, and then we have a creek that runs through the back part of campus. We have a huge green field. We have some woods for the children to play in. And so we just have a really unique campus that is really lovely. And so when the kids come in, and we're kind of also like the one room schoolhouse vibe. So we have like this dark blue, I call it cozy schoolhouse. And then we have a porch, and we have a play yard, and we have the woods, and we have the creek, and we have the field. So we do have a totally covered area that we do utilize the inside spaces, but first we are small. Like I'm not good with stuff like this, like how many acres and stuff we're on, but it's not a lot, but it's definitely enough for
Yeah.
us to enjoy. But so when they come in, we do like a really slow, like gentle start to the day. Usually they play outside for in Arkansas, we're pretty like we get hot in the
Mm-hmm.
summers and stuff. It's hot here, but we're pretty mild year
Mm-hmm.
round. So pretty much every morning they're outside playing for 20 to 25 minutes. And we encourage kind of big body, like physical movement at that time. Like, I mean, they can do whatever they want, but when they can do what they need to do. But
Mm-hmm.
some of them want to come in and sit with a facilitator and cuddle for a minute, or sit and talk forever. But a lot of them want to run and play, and then they come in and we meet up for a morning meeting, which is really we just go over the rhythms of the day, like what to expect. This really helps a lot of them. We have younger kids, so it
Mm-hmm.
really helps them kind of feel prepared and safe for the day. We have a lot of enrichment people that if we're walking to the library that day, we'll have that on the schedule. Or if we have our art teacher coming in, we'll have that on the schedule. And then we do have two what we call structured focused work times. Those can be project based, those can be whole group, those might be working on explicit instruction from our teachers. But those times happen in the morning. We have one block of time in the morning and one block of time in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a bunch of time to eat. We have like three eating times. Um, and then we have 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon of just unstructured what we call nature playtime.
Awesome.
Um, yeah. And then sometimes at the end of the day, we have like a 30-minute window of time that we may have an art teacher come in, or we may have an enrichment activity, or like a grandparent might come in and do a little presentation on, like we had a grandparent come in the other day and he's retired from Parks and Rec at one of the other cities in Arkansas, and he brought in like all this stuff, like snakes and frogs and all these little containers, and the
Mhm.
kids love that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So you have 15 students, you said, and you said you have people knocking down the door to enroll next year, but you're kind of
yeah.
holding a firm line in terms of what micro means to you and also maybe the capacity of your physical spaces.
I've been thinking about all the things to see how we can, expand, but there's a big need in our community for what we're offering, and I think that we offer something extremely unique.
All right, so I want to get into just kind of what learning looks like in your space. I guess the way I've been phrasing this question for people is when something really good is happening in your program, because sometimes it's like, as you know the feeling, I know the feeling. You walk into whether it's the play yard or a particular room or whatever, or just the vibe of the campus that day. And some days it feels like you're just pulling teeth to get through the day before the whole thing unravels. And other days you feel like you walk into this like orchestra.
Magic.
Yeah, like someone's just jazz is happening, right? And
Yep.
so when something really good is happening in your space, what is that?
Mhm.
What does it look like? What are kids doing? How do you know?
Well, I think, like, first of all, like, all of what we do with the kids is based on relationships. So it's relational learning. So I think that in a lot, like, I think all of our settings like this, that is the case, or at least I'm sure it is. For instance, like, our facilitators know these kids so well that when something is happening in real time, we usually will like be like, look, like we will be like so excited, like
Right.
praising, like, oh my gosh, like, and then saying it out loud, like almost like a storytelling.
Hmm.
This happened like this week, so it's on my mind, but we have one of our older students who's been with us for the last 3 years. And then there's a new to our program this year, 5-year-old, and then the older student is 8. I say older, he's only 8, but in our program it's older.
Yeah.
And he just unprompted, they were doing this like necklace making thing. They were making like little necklaces, and the 5-year-old needed help tying the knot, and the 8-year-old just had also been working. He had mastered that skill this year because we've done some survival skill training too, which is really cool. We have a survival skill guy come and do some little classes with them.
Mhm.
And he had learned how to tie a knot. And so he just comes over and like ties the knot on the end of the necklace for the 5-year-old. And just the look of the 5-year-old was like, oh, this older kid is like helping me. And I feel so special. And then the older kid was like, I did this. I know how to do this. And I also want to use what I've learned to help others. And we were all really proud to see that. Things happen all the time. And like you said, like it goes in waves, different things. But I definitely find that the end of the year is a really cool time to see kind of the magic, if you will, come together, because we've been together all this time. The kids feel safe. They know
Yeah.
the boundaries, they know the expectations. And then that to me is when things just explode. Like we did Box of Text is an activity. I don't know if you've read that book, but we just had a bunch of cardboard boxes in the play yard, and we read that book, and they just like put themselves into teams and like made their own version of spaceships
Mm.
with these cardboard boxes, and it ended up being like an all day thing, and the collaboration was just out of this world. We had one team helping another team, and like we were just kind of on the outskirts, like making sure they had enough materials and making sure that they took a break and ate a snack. They drank some water, but that was such an example of like, oh my gosh, we were taking like videos of them and like making sure this is just like the epitome of what we've worked for all year as a
Yeah.
school community, watching that in action. So,
The collaboration, the initiative, the engagement, like the blending of all kinds of different skills at once. Right. You can't Yeah, I mean, there are certain, like, I guess you could say, like, that activity was facilitated by the kind of cardboard boxes and the invitation, but you can't really compel that with the perfect curriculum or
Right.
the most well defined standard or whatever, like
Hmm.
you can only build relationships and kind of invite that kind of learning activity to happen, and then be patient, wait for it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's very similar. Like, what would you say learning, what's something about how learning happens in your environment that you would people who are really only familiar with conventional education would be surprised about? And that's a pretty good example, but is there anything else that you would say to that?
I think one of the things that I have found through working in these settings for the last several years, and I like to say boots on the ground because that's really what I am, is when we are able to follow the children's interests,
Hmm.
is like to me the magic. We keep saying that, but like whenever there is, and we like to, we do like a lot of like place-based education in our setting. So we live in Arkansas, we have all the four seasons, and we know what's going to happen basically, in our environment in those at those times of the year. And so we use that. And we also have an urban farm, so we're able to use all these wonderful materials. And one of the best things that happened all year was when we found two crawfish, not one, but two in the little creek that is not filled very often. It's only really filled in the wintertime when we have a little bit more rain. Two crawfish together, and they were like the most beautiful colored crawfish that I'd ever seen. And I've been on rivers and creeks my whole life. It was like this like really pretty, like almost like a turquoise color. And we spent 2 weeks learning about crawfish
Right.
because they were so excited. I remember going on a walk with the younger crowd that wasn't even there the day we found them, and we were looking for crawfish chimneys, and like they were like, oh my gosh, is this one, and like all this investigating. And like I think that's going to live as like a core memory in some of these children's mind because it's hands on. I
Yeah.
think that's another piece to it, is that we are fully immersing them in these experiences, and we're able to show that in prism, really saying like, hey, look at this, and listen. And you can't, when you see their faces in those pictures, or when we look at our documentation, we're like, you can't mimic this. You can't try to force this because it's not going to happen. Like, this is how it happens. And we ended up doing like clay. We did like, I think we ended up making clay models of crawfish. We had all these, anyway, it was just a really fun, it was one of my favorite things that happened this
Uh,
year. But we do all
yeah.
kinds of fun stuff.
I love that. I think that's like, I mean, the fact that that happened, and how many kids were kind of on that crawfish, like, like, interest, like,
Yeah, I would say like most of
oh,
them.
wow. Okay. That's amazing.
Like, and we all, I don't know if we just have that sweet spot of amount of kids. There's a couple that, there's always some that like to observe and stand on the outside and kind
Yeah.
of like, I don't know about this, but
Hmm.
there tends to be just this group. When there's this group felt safety and this group dynamic,
Hmm.
it kind of tends to like, the ones that are hesitant tend to come along, and if they're not, we don't, we are all just like about like exposing to
But
things and
the
like,
it can be infectious, the interest, like,
yes,
one kid's obsession. I mean, that we see that with, like, someone will come in and it's like they're playing with this, you know, or I use the Rubik's cube as an example, or Pokemon, or like whatever the thing is that, like, one kid's like
yes,
really interested in it, just kind of becomes infectious among others. And I, that's so much of, I think, we learn in life. I mean, we learn this as adults. Something I really recognize growing up is I want to learn things from people who I respect. You find people that, like, and you like and you respect them for some reason, and then it's like whatever they are interested in, you by proxy become interested in. And so, again, going back to like the relationship thing, you know,
yes,
the crawfish thing could be earth science to art to, I mean, you probably could have, if you wanted to, cover any like academic subject in through that interest because the engagement was there, and it's like we're so now it's AI and we're like, okay, what AI chatbot can we get to get kids to learn all the school things? It all comes down to, do they actually care and are they engaged? And it's this reverse, the more you try to force it, the less you're going to actually get there. And it's, you have to kind of just start with, who are you as a person? What do you like? What are you, how are you playing with the world? And then it kind of
Yes.
comes to you that way, right?
I think we have, like you said, we have some charismatic older students who you just, they can do a lot. They've got a lot of skills and
Mm-hmm.
they're so kind and want to share those and generous. And we just have this wonderful like environment that it's not competitive. I think that's another thing in the conventional setting is everything is like pitched
Right.
as a competition.
Yeah.
And when you remove that, it's just amazing what can flourish
Mhm.
there without this. It's more of like, ooh, that kid can do that. I'm going to be able to do that one day. Not, oh, that kid can do that. There's something wrong with me, or why
Right.
can't I do that?
Mm.
It's more
So
of the
true.
spirit of,
Yeah. What a
yeah,
distinction. Yeah. Right. Because they're seeing their peers as their own, as learn people that they can teach and learn from. The tying the knot
yes,
example you gave at the beginning, right? Like it's,
yes.
we're all here to just grow and engage in the world and learn new things and find joy and not compete and rank and sort and compare and all the kind of like toxicity that comes with that.
Well, and on that note, if I may, it reminds me of something just this week. They're into jump rope lately. I think
Mhm.
one of our facilitators like brought a couple because she noticed one of the girls was like taking a long string and like trying to jump like some like not a jump rope, like a string and trying to
Mhm.
jump over it. So she had a couple jump ropes at home, brought them, and there's been this interest in jump roping. So anyway, we had kids going home trying to jump rope, trying to do it, trying to learn. And then we got a big long Dutch rope, not double Dutch, because I a big, just a long Dutch rope. And we two facilitators holding it and showing how to do the jumping in, like jump.
Mhm.
And young some people had never even some of the kids had never even jumped a jump rope before. And then some of the older ones were like, I challenge accepted, like I'm going home, mom, dad, grandma, whoever, buy me a jump rope. I'm going to try this at home. We had kids practicing at home on their own. I mean, nobody was even, we were just providing the things. And anyway, some kid would get like 18 in a row and one kid got one in a row or two in a row, and like they would like cheer for each other. And like seeing an older kid get 40 in a row, it was them. They just, I just loved like it. I feel like in some settings that would have turned into a lot of like, but and they were being kind of competitive, but in a very healthy, like natural way. Like
Right.
it was just really cool.
To see
um
how well they could all do together in a sense, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and cheer each other on. And
Right.
then if they couldn't do it, they weren't sad about it. They were just like, well, that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'm going to keep trying, and watching other people kind of like hit their personal goals and things like that. Like, so we've just been in the play yard, like, and now they're learning how to do it on their own. Like, first it was us, just two facilitators, like doing the jump rope.
Yeah.
And now they're learning how to do it with each other.
I mean, you mentioned before we hit record, the social emotional learning, and obviously like a kind of a, say
Hmm.
buzzword, but like it's a very real thing. But like in that context, it's like, okay, there's the jump rope skill, but like the culture of your environment that you've created, where the kids are supporting each other, trying to improve, seeing each other as co-teachers, what the way they relate to themselves and others, and learning, to me, like there's just so much depth there, because like you carry that with you in your bones and your soul moving forward. And I think that there's so many people get through conventional school into adulthood and they're still living in that kind of like that self image of like comparing myself to others in this lack kind of way, and seeing like everything's a competition, everything's a comparison. And like we don't talk enough about what's really being learned in those two different cultural distinctions. So, so huge and so important, I think, in these smaller settings that, like you said, are based on relationship first. So, very cool story. Okay, well, I think you've really done the job of this conversation so well, and some of what you shared already. I don't know if my other like leading questions are gonna get us much further, but we'll try one or two more. One I've been asking people is, the dominant story about learning is that it's something that's measurable and that it's something that happens in classrooms. And so if that's not your story, then I'm curious, what story would you tell about learning instead?
Yeah. I think that it's a story that's very ingrained in all of us, and
Mm-hmm.
us starting, we have this inner knowing that we know it's not the truth, but we've, some of us, a lot of us have gone through that system, and a lot of us are still trying to kind of break those norms and try to kind of forge this new path for ourselves and how we want to parent and how we want to do things. So it's really hard sometimes. And we even, like, when we hired our teacher when back when we were at the farm school, there we're still there, it's taken a while to kind of be like, look, like, we think that we need to do this, we need to have this, but what if we don't? And I remember when we started off at when we were reimagining as
Yeah.
Evergreen, I just wanted to really like reimagine that, and I really wanted to like confront that and say learning happens everywhere all day, even the language that we use. I never wanted it to be, well, you know we can't play all day, we got to do this, because if we let them, they would play all day. That's literally how they learn and what they want to do. I'm a huge proponent of, like, I mean, there's definitely time to do everything. Like, there's a time and place for all of it. There's a
Sure.
great balance. There's this, there's that. There's so many different pieces to it. But if they had the choice, they would play all day. And so what we try to do is give these, like, in our age, we got youngs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, like, what we're trying to do is just have this really gentle, child kind of centered approach to the academics that they're getting. And as an OT, like, I do see that, like, I believe that explicit instruction, I personally, not everybody believes this, I think explicit instruction needs to happen to best learn reading and writing,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly math. I don't know if I'm really sold on that, because I don't think I learned math the right way growing up. So I still don't understand math. So I think math is best maybe
Wait,
like
you're a
hands on.
functioning adult that runs a business?
Like, I still don't really understand. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know how to help. I don't know how to do math. So basic math, like, but yeah. So there's a time and place for all of it. But, like, I think one of the things, like, when we hire new staff, like when we're talking about, it's from the beginning, when our students come on board that first day, that first week, it's learning happens everywhere, all day, in play, here, there, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also just making sure that we open up that, for me, in our setting, it's making sure that we keep that door, like, we keep that open and that
Mm-hmm.
mindset that way,
Yeah.
and really stretched. I don't want to hear my staff saying stuff like, well, we can't play all day, or like, we got to sit here, we got to do this and learn, or whatever. Like, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like that's very limiting, and I don't want to be limiting in
Yeah.
any way. So I don't know if that was the, like, answer or response you were
No.
looking for, but that's like my mindset
No.
about it.
No canned response. Looking for just however you feel about the question. I think you answered it really
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's like, like those spaces where the kids are playing. It's like that's your window or your openness to see what the next crawfish situation is going to be, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Yes,
right. So, yeah,
exactly. And observing and seeing what that is. What is that? And I want to be high quality. So it's not just, it's a skill to be able to
yeah,
observe that and then figure out what the next step
big,
is.
right,
And that's the work of the facilitators.
100%. Okay, Chelsey Harrington, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, for jumping in here, having this conversation, and showing us a little bit more about what learning looks like at Evergreen Academy in Conway, Arkansas.